Hello guys, it's me Urahara, and in this video I will present a list of the 13 most powerful captions in the history of Bleach story. And so that this list will be a diverse mixture of some captions from the first generation of the Kuchi and some captions from the flashback pendulum, as well as from the version of the Soul Society arc, and only one of the new captions the story knew in chapter 685. So this list can be considered the perfect version of the Kuchi in my opinion. And I based my classification on two basic principles: the strength of the captain's Ryatsu, as well as the abilities of the Zanpakuto of his Zanpakuto in Shikai and Bankai. And of course, if he is proficient in Kido and Hakuda, this will make his rank higher. And there are some captains I didn't rank like the former captain of the 6th squad, Ginri Kichiki, because we didn't see anything about him. And I also didn't put Ukitake on this list because of his condition, which made him unable to fight often, as well as the members of the 0th squad who previously been as captains in the Kuchi, such as Kerenji and Hikofuni, because we don't have any information about them when they were captains. Also, this classification relates mainly to the captain's real strength and not the achievement or the use of alternative methods that are not related to their strength, such as the use of some drugs or certain tricks in order to bring down the opponent, or the use of another person to overthrow the opponent. And as I said, I relied on the strength of the character in terms of Ryatsu, the strength of the Zanpakuto, and the 4 known ways of how a Shinigami fights. And of course, I don't mean any particular captain. The important thing is that at the end of this list, we will see together the teams and the captains who will be at the head of each one of them. So let's start, guys. And the start will be with Rikia Kuchiki. She is the only new captain I see who really deserves to be on this list. I can even say that Kuchiki Rikia is the only character that we have seen the path of her development and her climbing from rank to rank until she reached the rank of captain, unlike some characters who suddenly jumped to the rank of captain like Eva. So Rikia took her time, beginning with her joining the 13th squad and her first training with Kai and Shiba, and then after getting to know Ichigo, she fought several important fights in which Rikia showed her skills both in use of Zanpakuto by mastering Shikai and defeating multiple enemies using it, whether Arankara number 16, the Rio, or the 9th Espada. And also we can't ignore her use of Kido. Rikia is among the few characters who use Kido a lot. And so after the end of the Battle of Karakura and nearly after 5 months passed, Rikia was promoted to the position of vice captain. And during the events of the final arc, everyone noticed the strength she gained by training in the Royal Palace during the last arc, whether it's discovering the power of her true Zanpakuto Sudino Shirayuki by manipulating her body temperature down to the absolute zero, or the achievement of Bankai. And we saw what she did by releasing her Bankai. She was able to defeat the Shiranaita Ace Knot in his full starting form. However, Rikia did not immediately become a captain even after obtaining her Bankai. Rather, she remained for almost 10 years after the Quincy War before she officially became the captain of the 3rd division. And so imagine with me Rikia after 10 years. I'm sure now she mastered her Bankai without big obstacles, and also she is able to perform high levels of Kido. That's why I say Rikia is a good example of how a Shinigami can become a captain. And now with Heraku Shinji. Heraku Shinji is frankly one of the characters who had several distinctive skills that no one else has, but unfortunately Kobo always puts him in situations that show Heraku in a way I won't say weak, but it doesn't reflect the qualifications he has. He is considered one of the ancient captains as he was in this position 100 years ago, and after the incident of Eisen and his exposure to the holification, Heraku had an additional strength that made him, along with both Kinsey and Rose, the only captains who possessed Shinigami and Hollow's powers. So I said that Kobo did not make good use of Heraku. He had special Shikai Sakanade, and with its special ability he can take down any enemy only if Heraku closes his mouth and not explain his abilities. Moreover, he can use the mask, which gave him additional strength and special offensive abilities. We saw how Heraku faced the 6th Espada Garemijo and he was going to force him to use his resurrection. So when we talk about the qualifications that Heraku has as a captain, they are excellent. Even the Bankai, which is considered to have many obstacles for being released, it has a terrifying ability. So all Heraku needs is to employ his abilities in a good place, and then his true strength will appear, which unfortunately didn't happen. And we are with Gin Ichimaru. Is one of the few talents that has shown its competence within the Kuchi. At a young age and within 1 year he was able to graduate from Shino Academy and join the Kuchi. Although he was at a young age, he was able to kill the 3rd officer of the 5th squad, and therefore Aizen's interest in him since his childhood was not the result of emptiness, and Gin becoming a captain was only a matter of time, especially after the incident of Heraku and the rest. The position of the 3rd squad captain was waiting for him. Unfortunately, Gin was walking on a tragic path, but supposing that Gin remained a captain and did not work with Eisen, he certainly would have been one of the most powerful young captains in the Soul Society. His Shikai, although it does not have a variety of abilities, but his effectiveness shows the extent of Gin's strength. In the first appearance of Gin in the story in front of Ichigo, one hit from Shinso was able to throw both Ichigo and Jidambo dozens of meters away. And this is without talking about the terrifying Bankai, who would have eliminated Aizen Sasuke if it hadn't been for the intervention of Hogyoku. And now let's move to Captain Urichi. Although we don't know much about Urichi's period as a captain, but by following her path in the story, you can tell that she was among the strongest captains of several things. We are talking about a captain who has the name of Shunshin, Flash Master. For her uncompared professionalism in Shimpo, she even developed special Shimpo techniques and taught them to Byakuya. She also considered a Hakuda master, and she is one of the few people who likes to fight like this, especially since she was also the captain of Omitsukido. In addition to her professionalism in Hoho and Hakoda, she is also a master in Kido because she uses Shinko, and this method depends mainly on the combination of Kido and Hakoda. And of course, as long as she was a captain, she owns Shikai and Bankai. She herself has confirmed that in the history of the Soul Society, the only person who became a captain without owning a Bankai is Zaraki. And that's what Urichi herself talked about in the novel, is that she doesn't prefer to fight with it because she's more familiar with her own way of fighting, with Hakoda and using the Hoho as well as the Shinko. So I consider her one of the strongest captains and also the most distinguished in several things, as I mentioned to you. And now let's talk about another miraculous character. If Gin is considered a miracle for graduating the academy in 1 year, and as we said he showed high efficiency from a young age, Toshiro can be the biggest miracle. We are talking about the youngest person to be a captain within the Gucci 13, and he has the strongest Ice Zanpakuto. And at a very young age, Toshiro owned the Bankai, which gives you a clear signs of the great special power that Toshiro had since he was a child. What Toshiro can be criticized for, especially from the beginning of the story to the Arankara arc, is his haste, but he is excused. Being a captain at such a young age is not something easy, and even so, what happened to him against Aizen Sasuke at the end of the Arankara arc, it made Toshiro train more and more until he was able to release Daigen Hyorimaru in its full version, even for a certain period of time. And as I said in the 13 strongest Bankai, that the adult version of Toshiro give us a future look at what Toshiro will be in a few decades. Imagine we'll meet Toshiro in the age of Urichi or Heraku as a captain, how his level going to be. At his current level, Toshiro has shown several powerful abilities, he just lacks some time to get better. And now we move to the 8th most powerful captain in the Kuchi, the captain of the 6th squad and one of the great noble families, the noble Kuchi Byakuya. Byakuya is the first captain we know in the story. Through that iconic appearance, he appeared in front of Ichigo, and based on that appearance, we had this majestic picture of how strong a captain can be. And Byakuya became a captain at the same period of time as Gin, and that shows how superior they are. And the most special thing about Byakuya as a captain, and I talked about that several times, is that he is a great master of Shikai and especially the Bankai. And add to that, being a professional user of Kido by using several kinds of Kido without a spell. And we shouldn't forget another important aspect, which is Ryatsu. Byakuya is one of the characters who has a huge Ryatsu. In the first arc we saw how his appearance frightened Ganjo. Even Urichi and Ichigo sensed the imitated Ryatsu from afar, and currently Byakuya Kuchiki can be considered one of the most experienced captains with the Sotaicho Kyoraku. And by the way, I don't remember exactly where I read this information, but it said that Kyoraku was planning that if he was killed, Byakuya would be his successor, and frankly he could be considered the best successor to Kyoraku. And we move to Kisuki Urahara, the genius. Before we talk about Kisuki, I would like to say that it's not necessary for a captain to be stronger than someone who's not a captain. And the best example is Eisen and Heraku. Eisen was in another level of power, and yet he was Heraku's vice captain. Because some characters, for some reasons, hide their strength and scale from the rest. And so was the case with Eisen, and we can say the same thing with Kisuki. Kisuki, before he was a captain, he was in the third seat in the second squad. And because of Urichi's recommendation, he was nominated for the post of a captain. So it can be said that Kisuki is a powerful figure who for a long time has been working in secret. And maybe because he wanted to do some of his major ideas, such as the establishment of the technical institute and other things, he needed a position to do so. And the position of a captain of a certain squad is what he needed. Because if you notice that immediately after Kisuki became a captain, he made several fundamental changes. So I say that Kisuki could have been a captain a long time ago. On the other hand, Kisuki is like Urichi. He had several master skills in the Hakuda, and also he has a powerful Zanpakuto in Shikai and Bankai, and moreover is one of the strongest users of Kido in Bleach. So when we talk about Kisuki, we talk about a perfect captain who masters everything, and that's Kisuki's advantage. And we move to the captain Isshin Shiba. You know guys, if Kobo had given us some other fights for Isshin so that for example we'd see his Bankai, I'm sure I would make him the fifth. What some people should know is that Isshin is basically a young person with young features, as we saw in the flashback. Just because he got into a human Gigai, he took those old human features, but as a Shinigami he would have remained in the same body that we saw 20 years ago. That's on one hand. On the other hand, as you know, the main power of Ichigo is his Shinigami power. And here is a simple question. What is the origin of Ichigo's Shinigami power? The answer, as you know, his father Isshin. Isshin has a very big Ryatsu power, and we notice in the flashback of Isshin how he showed some of his Ryatsu. Isshin was at the front of the building, and the two officers who were with him were under the building, and yet they felt the power of Isshin's Ryatsu as if it was a storm of power. And only by using the Shikai he would have been able to kill Shiro if it wasn't Aizen's intervention. It's true that he could have used the Bankai to get it done as soon as possible, but Aizen's strike didn't get Isshin to release the Bankai because he needed to concentrate his own Ryatsu in his body to release the Bankai. On the other hand, even after 20 years without his powers, Isshin still had his strong skills, especially the good performance he did against Aizen. It gives everyone a sight of how powerful he is, whether using unique techniques or using the Getsuga Tensho, which completely destroyed Aizen's entourage and half of his face as well. Of course, as I said, you should keep in mind that Isshin was supposed to fight Aizen while he was still in the same shape as he was when he fought Shiro for the first time. For all of this, Isshin is considered among the 6 strongest captains in Bleach, in my opinion. And the next captain needs no presentation, Kyoraku Shunsui. If you notice, the nobles are automatically born with a big Ryatsu, and this list includes Urichi Shohin, Kuchiki Byakuya, and Isshin Shiba. All of them belong to one of the 5 great noble families, and also Kyoraku belongs to one of the noble families of a high grade after the 5 great noble families, and he is the second son of the family, so it's no wonder this character are very powerful. Kyoraku, since his first appearance in the story, we knew that he was considered one of the oldest captains with Okitake and Onohana, and Kobo always made him one of the characters who don't show up very often. But when Kyoraku enters the battlefield, his weight is heavy, and that's what happened against Dark and even against Lilibaro when he used his Dark Bankai. So after the old man's death, there was no better than Kyoraku to become the Sotaichu in terms of strength and the most of his strong personality that made him make several crucial decisions. And now we move to the 4th place, with the biggest surprises of the story that Kobo shocked us all with. The kind captain who has always warmed our hearts with her gentle smile and her soft words. Turns out she was hiding behind that smile a horrible bloody past. who would have expected that that lady is actually the first Kenpachi and a founding member of the Kuchi. And when we talk about a founding member of the Kuchi, it means she was with them, a monster among the strong monsters who got the respect of Yujiro himself. Unfortunately, this hidden character of Yujiro, we couldn't figure out much about her except what we saw in her battle against Zaraki, but only through that fight we can say that Kobo deprived us from a legendary character, especially the way of fighting and the art of using the sword. The way Yujiro fought Zaraki wasn't normal, and when this fight appears in the anime, it will show you what I'm talking about. Urahara's speed of using the sword in her deadly stabs to the opponent is extraordinary. In a few seconds she made Zaraki helpless. We are talking about Zaraki. Even though his power was sealed at that time, he was considered strong and defeated several opponents at that level, and yet in front of Yujiro he became like a little child. And the thing that distinguishes Yujiro and made her among the strongest is her possession of healing abilities. So even as she fights in a battle, she can heal herself and continue the fight, and that's what she did with Zaraki to restore his former power. And also we shouldn't forget that in the last arc filler they gave us a glimpse that Urahara is also good at using Kido at highest levels. So when we talk about Yujiro, we're talking about the strongest female character in Bleach. And the third place. I mentioned before the word miraculous child in this video, specifically Chugin Ichimaru and Hitsugaya Toshiro, but in my personal opinion, we can give the greatest miracle to this little boy. A barbaric boy with an extraordinary spiritual energy. It makes you wonder where it come from, and it doesn't matter honestly. From a young age, he knew nothing but the love of fighting and blood, until the point that he stole an Asauchi from a dead Shinigami, and he started making his bloody way, fighting and fighting, until he faced the first Kenpachi, and through that fight, we knew that the nickname Kenpachi existed only for Zaraki. Actually, I'm preparing a long video which will explain the power of Zaraki in detail and how it works, because Zaraki's biggest main power lies in his spiritual power that enables him to cut the strongest things and stand up to the strongest abilities. No wonder he spent centuries fighting tirelessly. It is true that this fight were selling his real power, but at the same time they were giving him physical strength and fighting skills. And with his fight against Yujiro and reinstilled those skills and communication with his Zanpakuto, it made him able to activate Shikai and release the Bankai. And I can say that he is the strongest captain in the last version of the Kuchi that appeared in the manga. And the second place belonged to the handsome captain, who deserves an Oscar for playing the role of the good and the nice captain, Eisen Sosuke. Frankly, one of the most characters I have enjoyed as a captain is Eisen Sosuke, whether before he reveals his truth or after. To be a captain of the Kuchi for decades and manipulate many successive captains, including the Sotaichu Yamaji, using only the Shikai, Eisen Sosuke at the Shinigami level was above everyone, except the old man Yamaji of course. And as we have said, Eisen's power lies in Ryatsu, and that's right, some Shinigami can compete with him at this point, such as Ichigo or Zaraki, but he still has the upper hand using Shikai Kyoka's wickets, so it's hard to beat Eisen one-on-one. And the result was clear to you when he ripped everyone in front of Yamaji's eyes. And the special thing about Eisen is that he mastered everything as a Shinigami. Kido, he performed Hado 19 against Sajin without incantation. He even released this Hado without even saying the spell or the number against Ishin. The Ryatsu, we saw how he submitted the 6th Espada Grimijo and made him lie down. Zanpakuto abilities, we saw how he used the Shikai and removed Baragan's crown and made him under his service. Eisen Sosuke represents almost the perfect Shinigami when we talk about power in its various fields. And here we go again with the greatness. When you hear this soundtrack, Eyes of Glory, know that I will talk about Yamamoto, the strongest captain Bleach has ever known. It is enough to know that if it was not for Yamaji, neither you nor I would have heard the term of Kuchi or the captain and vice captain. It all started with this fighter, which was followed by the idea of creating a squad of fighters under the name of the Kuchi, and that's where the 1000 years journey took off. Being strong with the strongest is great, but to be in the lead of them and they are at your service, we are talking here about another level of power. How not, and Yamamoto owns the strongest attacking Zanpakuto in the story, Ryujinjaka. A legendary Bankai would have caused the destruction of the Soul Society 1000 years ago, which made everyone terrified of the idea of facing Yamamoto without thinking about a way to keep his Zanpakuto power away from him. When we talk about Yamaji or Yamamoto, we're talking about the entire history of the Kuchi 13. For 1000 years, no one has been able to defeat Yamamoto or take the title from him. So without any discussion, Yamamoto, the founder, is the strongest. Now, I have reached my complete list of the 13 most powerful captains in Bleach, whose distribution will be as follows. And just imagine with me, these people in this list exist at one time. So let's begin, guys. The first squad led by the old man Yamamoto, who is the captain of the 13th squad division, and the second squad is led by Shohin Urichi, the third squad by Gin Ichimaru, and the fourth led by Yachiro Onohana, the fifth squad led by Eisen Sosuke, and the sixth squad led by Kuchi Byakuya, and the seventh squad led by Heraku Shinji, and the eighth squad led by Kyoraku Shinsui, and the ninth by Hitsugaya Toshiro, and the 10th by Isshin Shiba, and the 11th squad led by Zaraki Kinpachi, and the 12th squad led by Urahara Kisuki, and the 13th squad led by Kuchi Byakuya. So guys, this is my list. How do you find it? Tell me your opinion and see you in my next video.